Well, my father was William Alexander Vaughn, and he was born in 1884, and he passed away in 1934, January 1st, on New Year's Day. My mother was Pearl Frances Jones, and she was born in 1900, and she passed away in 1986, August 1986. And they were married, let's see, 1920, wait a minute, 21, yeah, 1921. And she had 4 children when my dad passed away, and one on the way, which was me. And I was born in June, whereas he had passed away in January.
Mm-hmm. So what was that like as a kid growing up with just
Without
your mom?
Well, my mother had to work because, and then my brother, my oldest brother, actually became the man of the family because he was only 13 when my dad died. And then there was a second brother, James. When my dad died, he was 10. And then Sis Eileen, we called her Sissy, was 7 years old when my dad died. And Betty was the next one. She was 3. She was 3.
So what was it like as a child growing up?
Well, it was a lot different than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
way a lot. Of course, we didn't have TV or air conditioning. We were lucky we had a fan in the summer. We lived, when I was from about 3 years old, we lived in a brick building, an apartment, and it would really get hot in some of those summers. And but we didn't have, like I said, air conditioning or fans or anything. And well, we did it later on. We got fans, to help us sleep, But boy, it would get hot in that building, I can tell you that. And but even in the winter, we didn't heat the bedrooms. We just had this huge kitchen where we had a potbelly stove, but it just big enough for even when some of my cousins would come and stay with us for a while, And then when it was time to go to bed, we went into the other part of the house, which was not heated. So we just had, warm clothes and lots of blankets.
Lots of blankets. So now your parents were in Louisiana and then moved back here?
Well, my dad died while they were in Louisiana, Faraday, Louisiana.
And they had a plantation?
He had a plantation, and it was right after the Depression, I guess, in 34. And and then my mom left with 4 children, me on the way. It was pretty rough, And she came back to southeast Missouri, where a lot of her family were from or lived, and stayed here and there, and until we got the apartment in St. Louis on Maffitt and Warney, which was a really nice little middle-class area with little houses and very well-maintained homes. And above a bakery is where we had our apartment. And that was kind of nice.
Yeah.
Because every time I come home from school, they'd have a little treat for me.
Oh, that's nice.
I got to where I got kind of up here with sweets. And by the time I reached like teenage, I couldn't even hardly eat sweets anymore, which was kind of a good thing, I guess, except that I can never gain any more weight than I couldn't even keep 100 pounds.
Wow.
Even when I had my kids, I'd always pray that I would keep that 100 pounds, but I never did.
Wow.
Until I was of course, in my 50s and started changing a little bit. But I never did weigh a lot.
What brought your mom to St. Louis? How did
Well,
she live up here?
family, and because there that she would have been alone in
Well,
Louisiana.
you said she was in southeast Missouri?
Well, that's where, like, Dexter and, well, actually, some of our folks lived in Arkansas, too.
Okay.
And Arkansas, I forgot what the name of that was. Oh, what's that state that's next to Louisiana? That's next to, what, I gotta look at my notes.
That's okay.
Okay. Forgot the name of it.
In Tennessee?
Huh?
They were in Tennessee?
Is it Tennessee? Let's see. There's Arkansas, and then
Alabama?
no. Okay, Arkansas and Louisiana. Isn't Arkansas though next to Louisiana? Am I mistaken?
I believe so.
Okay, so then, I just thought I would remember this. But anyway, they had relatives. She had relatives there as well. But then most of her family was up like in Missouri, and not that I know because I was a baby, But I guess my first recollection is when I was about between 2 and 3 years old, when we lived in somewhere with someone, or my mom had an apartment there that, and I don't know where that was because I can't find any of my, family that knows that. My sister doesn't remember. But there was a long, long stairway in the back inside the house. And I was toddler, I guess you'd say. And I thought it would be kind of fun to hide behind that doorway downstairs, like playing hide and seek. And they were all looking for me, and I could hear them calling me, and I just thought it was so much fun because they couldn't find me. And they had the whole neighborhood looking for me by a couple hours later, but I fell asleep. So I was there for 3 hours or more where everybody was looking for me. But that is my earliest recollection of my life.
Okay, that's a good story.
And yeah, that's not bad. And then the next thing I remember is when we were looking at that apartment that we finally moved in over the bakery, and I was over 3, something like that. Yeah, and that was, we didn't have air conditioning, we didn't have anything, like that. And
what did your mom do for work?
she actually, gosh, at that time, I don't know where she worked at that time, but I knew once we were older, she worked at the defense plant when the World War II started,
Okay.
And of course, I've been through 14 presidents in my life, from Franklin Delano Roosevelt to the current, which is 14 from that time.
And you said you remember when Pearl Harbor happened.
Oh yes, that, and I remember we used to have these little radios. You've probably seen replicas of them. Nowadays they make them, and we gather around like everybody gathers around a TV to listen to programs. And I remember him so distinctly, his speech when he came on and announced that we had been attacked by in Pearl Harbor by Japan, and I just never will forget that. And then of course we listened to all his speeches and everything on the radio. And of course they had really a lot of comical shows then, like Red Skelton, Bob Hope, and Bart Burns, and what was his name? George Burns. I don't know if you're familiar with that,
Yeah.
but you can get them on the internet. I didn't know that till the other night. I thought, I'm going to look those up, and sure enough, you can even hear those programs that we
really?
used to hear on the radio.
What's it like to listen to them now?
Huh?
What's it like to listen to them now?
Well, I didn't really listen to them. I just was trying to find the name of one ghost or kind of creepy shows.
Yeah.
And we turned the lights down real low in the living room and listened to one was called Inner Sanctum, and one was called The Shadow Knows, or Only the Shadow Knows. And then you'd hear a creepy door, So they were really good at it, like enabling you to envision, you had to over the radio, But that was fun. And of course, we always listened to the baseball games and the music programs, of course, Glenn Miller and Harry James, and got all the swing and jazz bands, That was, I love that music, And so, even to this day, it was just quite different lifestyle than we have today, and we were always outside a lot doing things. We walked everywhere. Nobody hardly had cars then.
So was everything pretty close, or was it a long walk?
It was long walks, a lot of it. And when they were really long, we'd get on the streetcar, we called them, or the bus. But most of the time we walked everywhere. And we even had to walk to school, which was quite a distance, no matter what kind of weather. They didn't call school off because you had bad weather, You just,
not like they do now.
You just bundled up and endured whatever it was. And, we had a Fairgrounds Park. That is still there, of course. And like I said, all that area was really, really nice then, You could walk anywhere. And we'd play outside at dark and everything. But we had to go that far to go to a swimming pool. And we also would walk there to play tennis. And with what other things. Sometimes, this is kind of, I only remember this a couple times, that we even went there a couple times because it was so hot to sleep. Well, you couldn't do that today,
Yeah.
But a lot of people did it.
Wow.
And so I guess what I want to say is that our life as children were so different because we were always figuring out things to do, like playing ball or jump rope or hopscotch, tennis ball outside. And one of the nice things about there not being a lot of cars all the time, our side street was, you hardly ever saw a car come by. That was our skating rink. And we skated all the time. And at that time, they had the skates that fastened onto your shoes, and you tightened them with a little key. But I run more pairs of shoes like that. My mom used to gripe, because I skated all the time. So I went through a lot of shoes. But it was so much fun. I mean, and at night, a lot of times we could play outside safely. Like, have you ever heard of the game Kick the Can?
Yes.
We did that. And then like hide and seek games or stuff like that, of course. And but we just loved to be outside all the time, And I think that's good for children to walk. And we did. We walked everywhere.
Yeah, you were very active.
Yeah.
And what were your siblings like? Did you get along well with them?
Our siblings, you mean?
Yeah, your brothers.
Oh, we
and
all,
sisters.
yeah.
Yeah.
Except the usual little squabbles that girls have,
Uh-huh.
But we all got along good. And we all had our jobs to do when my mom worked. And we better have them done, too, when she came home.
I'm sure.
But our floors were shiny and clean, and the furniture was polished. That was my job. I had to polish the furniture. And at that time, they had all the little turnings on the legs, and it wasn't easy. And then you didn't have the convenient.
Dad's phone going on. So you were talking about how you had to polish the furniture.
Oh yeah, that was my job, is to, and at that time you had to take the oil, put it on the cloth, and occasionally, when you run out, put more oil on it. It was a job to polish the furniture at that time. So, yeah. But what I wanted to say is, we didn't have cell phones, of course, and we were lucky we had a land phone, and we didn't for a many years. And so, if we wanted to make a phone call, we had to go to a pay phone or something like that, or borrow one at the neighbor's house or whatever. But we just didn't use phones that much then.
Yeah.
Although I think it's wonderful, the cell phones nowadays, because you've got them in when you need them in emergency, The other thing was, what I wanted to say is the things that we used to do when we were kids, is that we just had to be inventive about what we wanted to do, But we played a lot of games, and we just did a lot of kids like to knit and crochet and all that. I didn't really like that much stuff, but I did like to draw and paint and make doll clothes and stuff like that. But we did a lot of physical things. And not that I was athletic or anything. I wasn't. Never was. But we did jump rope and hopscotch and stuff like that. So we were outside a lot, and it was like punishment if we couldn't go outside, So, and I know a lot of kids don't do that today,
So because your mom worked a lot, you guys were pretty independent. You were kind of on your own a lot?
Pretty much, yeah. My big sisters were supposed to be watching me, but you know how that goes. I was pretty well watching myself.
And when did you move to California?
That was when the war started. My brothers went in the service. The oldest brother did not join, but the second brother, that was 10 years older than me, he decided he was going to join the Navy, but he wasn't old enough, so he lied about his age to get in the Navy. And then my oldest brother, because he was 13 and kind of more responsible than the younger brother, said that they were going to have to come get him, before he was going in the service, and they did. He was drafted.
He was.
And so they were both in World War II, and they were both gunners. Do you remember that, Jim? One was a nose gunner and one was a tail gunner. I don't know which one. Different. Jim might know. They never talked to us much, women, about that, but they would talk to the guys. Like my husband, Don, my brothers would talk to him about it. So he knew more about it than I did, or any of the rest of us girls, So, and my mom, she went to work at the defense plant. And most of the men were gone, except for the guys that were, quoted, what's the word, labeled or whatever, 4F. That's what they call it. They had some kind of a disability, like blind or something, not good eyesight or something like that. Yeah.
So that prevented them from being able to go to the war.
Right. And then my cousins, my aunt lived down the street. That was really nice, because if ever I needed anything, I could go down there, and I was down there a lot,
That was in St. Louis?
Right down, on Maffett Avenue. And actually, if you went straight up Maffitt, you'd hit Vandevenner. Or if you went the other way, you would hit St. Louis Avenue. Or the opposite way, you would go into Sarah Avenue. So that's the general area we were in. And it was, like I said, it was a nice area. And nothing, not dangerous, or because we wandered all over the place, And so, what was I getting at? Oh, got another question.
Well, we were talking about how you ended up in California. So so your brothers were drafted.
Well, my brothers went in the service. My mom was, that was her favorite, the boys. Have to say that. But anyway, she wanted to move to California so that she would be close for them to be able to come on furlough, because they were abroad, wherever, they sent them. I mean, I know, like, my brother Eugene we got picture from him when he was in Guam and the Philippines, stuff like that. We never heard from Jim that much because that's the way he was, But he did get injured as a gunner.
Oh, did he?
Jim did, which he lost sight in one of his eyes. And then after the war ended, as you know, the history of that, we didn't hear from Jim. We didn't know where he was or if he was alive or whatever for like 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
But he had gotten injured. And they probably couldn't find us because we moved so much. When we came back from California to St. Louis, we couldn't find anywhere to live, hardly, because all the servicemen were coming back. There was hardly any jobs for people. It was pretty bad. And people, they'd have a nice big house like in the West End there. They'd turn maybe their whole upstairs into rooms to rent. And of course you didn't have any kitchens up there, and they didn't want you to cook. But everybody did. They bought little hot plates, because you couldn't afford to go out and eat all the time anyway. And and the other thing I wanted to bring up was during the war, we had rations. Have you ever heard of that? Mm-hmm. Where they give you like coupons or whatever. I don't even know how it worked because I was just a little kid. And you can only buy so much sugar and so much this and that. You couldn't buy nylons because they used those materials that was used to make nylons for the servicemen. It was really, really restricted, how much things you could buy in a month's time or a certain length of time, whatever.
Did you say parachutes? Mm-hmm. That's what the nylons are made for?
Mm-hmm. What do you say, parachutes? Yeah, that's probably right. Yeah, or clothing or whatever. Of course, the men in the service, they went into really cold, very, very, very cold than what they were used to. Mm-hmm. Temperatures like Germany, and it got really, a lot colder than what it ever did at home,
So what was it like to have to live on rations?
Well, I didn't notice it much, but I'm sure, people that had to plan meals found it difficult, Oh, there's another funny thing that my cousin, I was speaking to her a couple days ago, and she said, do you remember when you bought lard or whatever it was supposed to be oleo? And they give you a little package of yellow with it, and you had to mix that till it turned yellow. And that was your butter, supposed to be your butter. And I don't think you could buy butter or that very much of it then.
So was it just like a yellow food coloring you put in?
Yeah, something like that to make it look like butter.
Wow.
I had forgotten all about that until she told me about it. And as kids, that was our job, because it took a while,
Yeah. Wow.
That and, I don't know, it just that when we came back, it was very bad because there was everybody looking for place to rent. And like I said, very few jobs because so many jobs were needed. So suddenly everybody's coming back, for after the war. And we had a terrible time finding a decent place to live. We moved several different places because they weren't suitable or good or something was wrong, But it's like I said, people turned their garages into an apartment. One time we moved in an apartment and it was something above the garage that they turned into an apartment. But in those days, they didn't have trash pickup like they do nowadays. They had a big ash pit out by what they called alleys. They still have those in the city, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But they didn't pick that up till like once a month, And what do you think? I mean, people threw their trash in there, so what does that draw? Rats.
Mm-hmm. So did you have rats in your...
Yeah, and then that apartment that we rented over the garage, my mom said, we didn't hear it because we'd fall asleep, little kids. And because I think I was 10 when we came back from California. But she could hear the rats running around down out there by the trash can and in the garage. And she was afraid they'd come up the stairs after us. Yeah. So it was interesting, that's for sure.
What do you remember from your teenage years?
From my what?
Your teenage years as a teenager.
Oh, man. Well, like I said, we still didn't have a car. Mm-hmm. And then because my brothers were veterans, we got a nice apartment in Jefferson Barracks.
Oh, okay.
And wow, I mean, that was so much different than what had been going on for the first couple years that we got back from California. And we got a 3-bedroom. That was, a lot from what we had been used to all those years trying to find a decent place.
Was it still all 6 of you?
Excuse me?
Was it still all 6 of you in that apartment?
All of us were in there then at first,
Mm-hmm.
and my brothers were going to college because they had the veterans, what do they call it? Benefit that would pay for their college because they didn't go to college before they went in, because they were just out of high school. Mm-hmm. That's how young they were. Yeah. But anyway, then we were there for a few years in which I turned 12, 13, that sort of thing. And anyway, even then a lot of people still didn't have cars. You walked to the bus and went wherever you had to go on,
Where did you go to high school?
Melville High School.
Melville?
That was in South County.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and of course I met my husband when I was 14.
Mm-hmm. So how did you meet him?
Actually through another friend. I met him at a basketball game, yeah. And actually he had seen me a couple of times before, and he found out this friend of his knew me, so he got him, and after because he was in the basketball game, the friend of his, and he got him over there to introduce us. And then I didn't see him for a little while, and then I saw him again at a dance at Melville High School. But then he found a way to get in touch with me again, and from then on, that was it. We went together for 3.5 years before we got married, and then I was still only 17.
Uh-huh.
But
so he really pursued you.
Yeah. But I didn't resist too much.
Well, he was a good-looking man.
He was. Yeah. And so, anyway, then, but I worked. You could work at that time. I worked at a swimming pool when I was 13. Oh, and I also babysat 5 children. Yeah,
Wow.
at 13
13.
years old. So, and that lasted a while. But then I got a job at the swimming pool in the concession stand. So, and 13, 14 years old, you could work then. But now that is something that's quite different nowadays. What, I don't think you can get a job till you're 16?
Right.
Something like that? Yeah, because I actually made a lot of my own clothes by buying my own material and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
And actually almost all my clothes I made, except a swimming suit or something difficult, But that enabled me to do it, So, anyway.
So, what were your first thoughts of Grandpa? What did you think of him when you first met him?
I'm sorry I didn't.
When you first met Grandpa, what did you think of him?
Was he what?
What did you think of him when you first met
Oh,
him?
love at first sight, something
Love
like
at
that.
first sight, yeah.
Anyway, but he was 3 years older than me, and I was older for my age because I had been when you start taking care of yourself when you're 8 years old,
You grow up faster.
you get more responsibility, stuff like that. And so, I was impressed by him because he was very helpful to his parents all the time. He knew how to work on cars and stuff like that at a young age. And he just could fix everything for his dad. And he worked in, his grandpa had a pharmacy in West St. Louis County. It was on, I think, Euclid, and I think West Pine and Euclid meet together. And his grandpa, we worked for his grandpa, all the time too, like on the weekends. And so he was, more
Grandpa Johnson?
Grandpa Johnson, yeah. And he was a really great person. And in those days, people would go to him to get advice on any problems they had. They won't allow you to do that today, I don't think, to tell somebody to take certain thing or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
But all the neighborhood considered him like almost a doctor.
Right.
And as our children, he was around for quite a number of years when our children were born. Oh well, we got married in 1951. Well, I should say, I'm getting ahead of myself, that Don was in the National Guard when I met him.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and they'd send them away for a couple months at a time on maneuvers and places, And so by the time when we got married, he got activated because of the Korean War. And we were going to get married like in December or something, and we had to move it up because they told us he was going to be sent, activated or sent to Louisiana in October. So we moved it up to the end of October to get married. And then they kept putting it off. So we didn't really get moved to Louisiana till December of that year, which is 1951. Well, the Korean War was going on then. And in fact, that's why they activated the National Guard outfit that we was in. And anyway, they moved us to Louisiana. And I talk about, it was so hot there. It was terribly hot. And we never had, like I said, fans or air conditioning or anything like that. And you take a bath and you couldn't get dry. It was the humidity was so high, So anyway, it was okay. Then we were there a year, and then they decided to send the outfit over to Korea. Well, Don had been in for almost 3 years in the National Guard, and you only had to join at that time 3 years. So his time was pretty close, and by that time I was expecting. And that counted then, where I don't think that makes a difference nowadays, you know. But then I think that you join the forces now, like before, you know. Even then, though, I don't think the draft was on, or maybe it was. Jim, is that right?
I don't know.
Because even when you kids were teenagers, didn't you have,
The draft
they had a draft
Yeah.
program?
for the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, sometimes they didn't have it because there wasn't like an emergency situation like Korea or something like that. But then they had the Vietnam when my boys were teenagers. I was a nervous wreck because they had numbers, right, that they gave
Called lottery.
the young guys.
And didn't
they
Uncle
both-
Donnie get called right before it ended? Is that right? Did Uncle Donnie did his number get called right before the war?
Did they call his number? Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying? No, both of them lucked out.
Oh,
They
they
didn't
did?
have to
Okay.
go.
I thought Donnie did, like right before the war.
I don't
ended.
remember anything like that, do you? Anyway,
I had a low number, but they quit taking troops.
they quit taking troops when your number came up?
Mm-hmm.
And you did, that's why?
Yeah, they weren't deploying or they were taking guys out of Vietnam instead of sending more of them over there.
So they were bringing the troops home
Right.
around the time that your number was
Yeah,
called.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I see. Oh, I was a nervous wreck about that.
I bet.
I thought my kids were going to have to go to that.
So
But anyway-
so Grandpa did not have to go to Korea.
Don did not have to go, but all his buddies, it was 131st Airborne. They were real popular after the war with the missions that they went on, and that's what he was in. But they did not send him because of the fact that he had almost his time was up that he signed up for, the 3 years, and that I was expecting. So anyway, then, but a lot of his buddies went, our friends, you know, and a lot of them came back so messed up from being
Really
in that war. Yeah. Sad.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see.
So you had Uncle Donnie. Did you have him in Louisiana or back here?
I had him, well, Don still had his time to finish his term of 3 years. So I had some real issues with medical problems when I carried Donnie, and I ended up in the hospital there. But they didn't treat the servicemen right. They sent us to the charity hospital and their families if they had to have that kind of care. And when I had a kidney infection, I almost lost my child. And after I was in there, I decided I did not want to have my baby there. So I decided I was going to come home, and I was 8 months pregnant. Yeah, and so I came home to find a doctor here, but I had a hard time. But his friend in the service, wife, had this doctor here in St. Louis that gave us a recommendation. And because I had that recommendation, he took me at 8 months pregnant. Nobody else would, or would have, I should say, because I don't think I tried anybody. But he said, usually I don't take someone that I have not taken care of them during their prenatal care. But he said, because you have a recommendation, he would take me. Well, I had all my kids. He was my doctor for all my kids. And a wonderful doctor, yeah. And so, anyway.
How old were you when you had Donnie?
oh, wait a minute, I was 18,
Or 18?
you know, so, which was, and I worked, from, like I said, from when I was 13, and I had a real good job when I got married that I had to give up, of course, because I was going with my husband, and I also went to night school when I was working. And then my job was close to downtown St. Louis, and I went to school in St. Louis. And then like I said, things were a lot different then as far as safety. And I mean, I was wandering around downtown and getting on streetcars at night,
Yeah, it was different then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had an apartment that was in the West End. Where you don't do that anymore, Don't go walking around. And when I got off the streetcar, I had to walk 3-4 blocks to back around to where our apartment was.
Wow.
So, anyway, so like I said, I was more grown up for my age, than as far as responsibility and that sort of thing was concerned. I wasn't streetwise or anything.
Yeah.
But in fact, I know somebody always watching over me because I was in quite a few dangerous situations in California and home. But I didn't realize until, later you think about it. Oh, my God, So even then, so.
Do you have any interesting or funny stories about your kids? Any funny things that they did?
In my what? I'm sorry.
About your children? Any funny things that they did or funny stories you can think of about them?
Oh, God, I didn't think about. There's a lot of funny things about that.
I bet they probably kept you busy.
What?
They probably kept you busy.
Oh.
All 5 of them.
Well, first of all, when we had Donnie, we lived in a little tiny 2-room apartment. Actually, it was a living room and a kitchen and a bath. That's it. And our bedroom was a Murphy bed that folded up into the wall.
Oh, wow.
And when you brought it down, you hardly had room to move, especially with the bassinet with the baby in it. So, but it was, like I said, they didn't have apartment projects like they do now.
Right.
I mean, hardly any. Like I said, everybody turned their homes into part of their homes into rental. Even shopping centers. We didn't have shopping centers like they do now. So I had to go quite a distance to go to the store or to shop for children things. I used to shop at Famous a lot in South Kings Highway. That was the closest place. And then I used to go to Lee May Ferry. They had a little shopping strip along there, a store called Pozlowski's. And that I frequented a lot. And so, yeah.
Did you live in that same place when Dad was born?
Yes, we were in that little apartment, yeah. And then because Don was a veteran, his dad had a lot of influence because he was, in politics, for a number of years. And he got us a place. Actually, there was a long waiting list for apartments there for veterans, but he got us one. Couldn't find anywhere decent to rent. And we get 2-bedroom, large living, dining area, and a real tiny little kitchen. But we thought we had a mansion, I'll tell you. Even though it needed a lot of work, and we started working on it, made it really a nice place. You remember living in the barracks when you were little? And we had Donnie and Jim, because Jim was just 14 months younger than Donnie. And then 3 years later we had Greg, and we still were there, but we had bought a lot on time in Arnold, Missouri. And we got that paid off, and then we were entitled to a veteran's loan for a house. So I applied for that, a short time, a little while before we had that lot paid off, hoping that we'd have it all worked out to start building our house. I had a really hard time getting them to commit to a loan to us. And again, Don's dad stepped in and helped us. He knew somebody that worked there because they just kept giving me the runaround. I worked on it for like a year to get a veteran's loan that veterans were entitled to because there were low interest loans, And Don, at that time, when the two boys were little, he worked at some kind of a plant. Step Brothers, that's what it was. And he could see that there was no advancement there for him. And so he told his dad he wanted to be a carpenter. And again, he helped him find a job with a company he had friends in or influence with, but it was a commercial company. And they put him way up high right away. He said at first he was crawling on the beams because he wasn't used to working high like that. Well, I could have never done it. I'm afraid of height. But anyway, after a couple of days, he was walking on like nothing.
Yeah, that's funny to think of Grandpa crawling on them because he was so used to being on them, after not too long. But
Yeah, and when we built our house, he had those little kids up on the roof.
oh yeah.
And I was having a fit, about them being, but they took to the height just as well as he did.
Uh-huh.
You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And because by that time they were 4 and 5 years old up on top of the roof, but it was a ranch.
But it was a ranch, so it was okay.
But they started pretty young around the building business because Don, he just loved it. He loved being a carpenter.
So that was the first house he built for you guys.
That what?
That was the first house that he built.
That was our first house. And let's see, that would have been 1957. So, Don was born in 31. So he would have been
26.
25, 31 off of 57, so 56. I mean, 26, I mean. Yeah, that's right. But he really was adapted to do that kind of work because he went to school because he got in the union and they sent him to school for a couple of days a week. I think that's how they do it in the unions. And he was a person that would, if you work for somebody, he gave all. 110%, And people appreciated that, And I tried to tell all my kids, and I think they were like that too.
They have no work ethic.
To give more than what expected of you. But anyway, he did, and for it, this guy he worked for the commercial company, then he got a job with, somehow or another, through the union with a guy that built homes and remodeled. Or no, apartments. They built apartments. Okay. And that builder, all of a sudden, he just had too much work. So he asked Don if he wanted to go in business for himself. And so Don said, well, sure, because he was running the work anyway. And he just advanced really fast. And he lent Don any tools he needed, because tools are expensive, as Jim can tell you. And until he was able to get his own, he let him use all his stuff.
Wow.
And to be able to do the work. Of course, you have your own tools you have to have by yourself when you're just a employee,
right.
But then he had most of his own tools in a very short time because he was making really good money to build on apartments. And so, but he learned a lot from some older men that worked for that company, and they were really knowledgeable, you know. But they were pretty much up there. I'd say 50s, 60s, you know. That taught him a lot, you know. And so that's the way he started in the building business.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but
And then all the boys followed in his footsteps.
yeah, and he put the boys to work pretty young, didn't he? I think they all adapted to it really well, and are all good at what they
very
do.
Talented.
Yeah.
And then he built the house out in Lakewood.
We lived there for about 8 years in that little house that we first built. In 1957, we got it finished. But he used to work hard all day and then come home, and we dragged all 3 kids out there to the house, which was a good distance from South County to Arnold. They didn't have the interstate in then when we moved out there.
Wow.
And we worked so hard. We finished that whole inside ourselves. We did everything. And his uncle was a sheet metal, Uncle Al. He was a sheet metal man, and he came out and put our heating system in. And well, then we had other friends that would come and help us do things, you know. And we all were always exhausted all the time. Even we both lost weight trying to get that house done. I couldn't afford to lose much weight, but I did. But and then we moved in there when Greg was a year old. We moved in the house. Yeah, but we outgrew that house.
Yes, you did.
We had 2 more children, so we only had 3 bedrooms, and we had 5 kids. And but it was a nice house, you know. We didn't sell it; we rented it and built a townhouse in the same general area, where one side we could rent out,
Okay.
and which paid for the whole thing,
Right.
you know. So we lived there about 5 years, I think, wasn't it? Something like that. When the boys, okay, so when the girls were born in 60 and 61, and they were about 3 or 4 when we moved to, about 3 or 4 when we moved into the townhouse. And we stayed there till how old were you, Jim, when we moved? We started building a house in Fenton, Missouri.
14, I think.
You were 14? No. When we moved in Woodway? Oh, okay. You were 14 and Donnie was 15? Something like that. Yeah, because the girls then, Julie was starting 1st grade, and Lisa was in kindergarten. So that was 64 and 65 and 66. You were born in
56.
52. No, 53.
Oh, 53, yeah.
Huh?
53.
You were born in 53, so we moved in on Woodway when Julie was 6. Right? So that would have been 66.
I guess.
So,
I guess
how old would you have been?
I was 13.
13.
So, yeah.
So he was 13.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I thought you were, okay. It's hard to keep track of all that.
Yeah, you have 5 kids to keep track of.
Yeah. I can't keep track of birthdays anymore because I got so many grandchildren and
Yes, you do.
great-grandchildren.
Do you know how many grandchildren you have?
I have 14 grandchildren, and I got to count on my fingers. I think I have 5 or 6 great-grandchildren.
Yeah.
Oh, I have, okay. I'm counting the ones that are adopted. Like, okay, Donnie's daughter adopted one. Heather has two. One of them's adopted. Um, uh,
And Maggie has a daughter who's adopted, right? Or she.
oh, I counted that one. I'm calling Donnie's got the one. Oh no, we're talking about grandchildren.
Grandchildren.
Okay. See, I got mixed up on that already. Grandchildren, I have Heather and Maggie and Ian. And then Jim, we've got, you had 5. That's 8, right?
Yes.
And then Greg had 3,
Uh-huh. So that's
11.
And Julie had 3.
Julie has 3,
14.
12, 13, 14. I was right.
Yeah.
And then great-grandchildren, that's what I was trying to figure out.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to start with Donnie. He's got the 1 and 2 from Heather. Ian has none. Jim's got,
Well, and Maggie has 1. Maggie's daughter.
didn't I count that?
I don't know.
Oh,
So
Heather.
3, so 3 from Donnie. It's hard to keep track of.
Anyway, I got a lot.
Yes.
Right? You probably can count them better than me.
4, 5,
Anyway,
7.
7 great-grandchildren. That's with the adopted ones, yeah.
Yes.
With Maggie's, yeah. I just wanted to tell you, I think I more or less covered how things are so different nowadays than they were then,
Yeah.
you know. And I think they were for the better. Some things are better now. But not very many. but I think having cell phones is one of a good thing in a way.
Yes.
In another way, they're not. The only way that I think that they're really good is that you have something with you at all times that you need help.
Yes, because you've been in a lot of situations where
Oh, I had
you
some
had
really.
to rely on a stranger to help you.
Oh, well, like that time I had the accident and when Donnie was a baby and turned the car over, we had no way to get any help. I was just fortunate that someone came along and saw the car turned over. And we were on a cliff. We were about ready to go off the cliff.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That was
You didn't know that?
that was on Bagnell Dam.
Bagnell Dam. Don took a job down there. And we had overslept, and he never had time to eat breakfast because he was always pretty insistent about being on time. So I had to go back home. I drove him with the little baby so I could have the car to come back and bring him something to eat and his lunch as well, because I always did that before he went to work. And my brakes went out on going down the bottom of Bagnell Dam. And there was a sharp hairpin turn down there, and I wasn't going to take the hairpin. I knew it because I had drove it before. I knew what was down there, and I was a new driver, and I didn't realize that I had my foot on the clutch.
Oh.
That only makes you go faster and faster. And I'm trying to put the brake on. There's no brakes. And so the car turned over. And I knew what was there. It was like a 300 or 400 foot drop.
Oh my gosh.
But it turned over, and we were laying on the side windows, actually, because I had the baby in the back of the car in a bassinet. They didn't have
They didn't have car seats
seatbelts
then.
then either. Another thing.
So Donnie was just in a bassinet in the back seat.
And he rolled out onto the window, and I was on the window, but I was afraid to move because I felt the car slipping, and we would have went over. We'd have probably been killed.
Wow.
And I was blowing the horn to get help. And when the baby was screaming because, he got jostled out on the... So I just reached back like that and just pulled him carefully up by me without trying to move myself to put any weight to make us turn over. And I had stopped blowing the horn to do that, and a car went by. And then as soon as I got him up by me and calmed him down, I started blowing the horn again. And they heard it, and they came back.
Wow.
And they helped us. They couldn't get us out because the car was like this. Here's a cliff, and the bottom of the car was up here, and they could see us through the windshield from the road, laying there, me with the baby.
Wow.
And they went and got help to bring back a whole bunch of men to stable that car to get us out.
Wow.
That was close.
Yeah.
But I was praying
I bet you were. I bet you were. Wow.
a lot.
You definitely had someone looking out for you a lot.
Oh, absolutely. And I can, even when I was little, there's so many times that I think back, I thought, oh, that was a dangerous situation, you know. When you're running around California and you're 8 years old, that's not a good thing.
Wow.
And, oh, I don't know, other things since then, even here, you know. So,
So would you say that your faith is very important to you?
that my what?
That your faith.
Absolutely. I know that without God's help and watching out for me, that I'd have been in big trouble a lot of times.
Yeah. You have felt his presence in your life.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was, I think, 11 years old when we came back from California. I was living with some people in, what was that car? What is the name of that town? I don't know. It was out north somewhere. A couple that my sister was friends of my sister, Eileen. And, well, because we were having a hard time finding a decent place to live, you know. And like I said, I changed schools so many times and trying to find a decent place to live. But I went to, you remember Will Brunk? I sent my kids to Christian camp every summer when they were old enough. And Will Brunk had one of the, but he had a church there as well, Carsonville, I think it was called, area.
Okay.
Does that sound familiar? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Anyway, I can't remember that anymore. But that listening to Will Brunk giving the gospel message is how I was saved first.
Oh.
11 years old.
At 11. Wow.
And anyway,
Was faith important to your mom? Did she ever talk about that? Did you go to church or anything like that?
well, we went to church when we were kids because there was a church right across the street on the corner. And us kids went to church, you know,
Okay.
there. But my mom, well, I think she was raised by my grandmother, she was very, you know, I don't want to say religious, but, you know, that type of person.
Yeah.
And always, she'd come to our house. I'm getting back, I'm forced now. But when we were little, my grandma, Jones, would come to our house to visit. That was in the 40s. Remember how they wore their skirts up above the knees in the 40s? She'd come and lengthen all of our dresses. And when she'd leave, my mom would, hem them up again.
Oh, how funny.
But, you know, nobody
Yes,
said
very-
anything. We didn't want to hurt Grandma's feelings.
Of course.
Yeah.
She was very conservative.
Yeah, but I think she was raised, you know, with, you know, going to church and everything. But she didn't much when she worked all the time. You know, it's pretty hard to keep up with 5 children and working all the time, you know, and
Absolutely.
that's your only time off, you know,
Right.
to get other things done. So,
Right.
but anyway.
Okay. Any special memories you have with Grandpa that you want to share with us?
Grandpa, my husband.
Your husband, yeah.
Well, I think I already did pretty much that he was a hard worker and
Yeah.
he was a good father, I think. Responsible person. I mean, he could fix anything. I mean, even from a young age on. I think the kids are like that too. They try to figure things out. Or some guys, you know, they think I can't do it, so they don't try. You know.
Yeah, Dad said that Grandpa was really self-taught. That he would just
He
if he
just
didn't
took.
know how to do something,
He
would
just could
it
figure
out.
things out. I mean, mechanically. And then with the carpenter trade, I mean, he could figure out any kind of roof.
Oh, yeah.
And that some of them were pretty difficult. And some of the custom homes he built, you know, could figure them out. And also how to put a house on a piece of ground. He could really do a good job of how the terrain of the ground would fit a house and make it work. Not always. You have to, certain houses you can't put on certain pieces of ground, as you know, right?
Right.
And so, but he was really good at that, you know. In fact, when we built the condos out there, the loan company that had always lent us money we built a lot of custom homes. I mean, spec homes, I should say, and custom as well. And we always did a lot of repeat jobs for people that he built for before. We'd always, if they wanted more work done or another house done, they'd always call down. We never ever advertised, so he always had a lot of work.
Through word of mouth.
Yeah, and so he was really good at what he did, you know. And all my boys are too, you know. And but let's see, what was I getting at? Oh, forgot. Sorry.
Something with the condos, with the loan.
Oh, when we built the condos, the loan company had bought some property, land, and they got in trouble, like it wasn't going so good. So they called Don and said they wanted him to put a couple spec houses up. So he did. And they told him he could pick any lots out he wanted. So he picked out these 2 lots together on a corner. And after he got them built and they turned out beautiful, we built a 2-story on one and a ranch on the other one. And they all fell back from the ground, from the street, which made them open in the basement. And in fact, the ranch house was open almost 3 sides, wasn't it? The ranch?
I think so, yeah.
I'd love to buy that house if they would put it up for sale. The first people that bought it are still there.
Oh, wow.
And I'd like to have it, really, if I have to have somebody come and help me take care of me. There would be, it's the neatest. I designed a lot of the houses. And in fact, I designed both of those.
Where is that house at?
In Forest Hills, over here where Georgia lives.
Okay.
Yeah, remember?
In Eureka.
And the boys helped build those, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And but anyway, getting back to the people, the loan company that asked him to come in there and build a couple spec houses. They asked him after he got them built. He said, "Why did you pick the 2 worst lots in the subdivisions?" Because they weren't the worst lots. He says they were the best.
Yeah.
Because he had that ability to put the right house on the piece of ground to make it work good. Yeah. But that ranch house, I'd love to have that ranch house. If I didn't have to pay too much more than
Right.
this one. But it would be suitable for somebody to have their own space downstairs because it has 2 fireplaces and that's all finished down there. And it's all open, pretty much, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's got like 2 open sides because of the way the ground falls in the back.
Yeah.
And the 2-story as well, that's all open in the back. And so, anyway, was good at what he did, in other words. I think the boys picked that up from me.
Yeah.
And also my ability to design, right?
Yes, they got that.
And Jim was good at that at the condos. We were building smaller units, and he came up with a plan for bigger units on the lower walkout levels, right? and which really helped sell a lot of those bigger units.
Mhm.
But we ended up renting a lot of them, though, that
Yeah.
did not sell.
Mhm. You had some natural talent in your family for the carpentry business.
What is that?
You had natural talent in your family. For the
Yeah, I
carpentry
like to
business.
design. I'd lay there at night and think about, and then I'd get up and draw what I was thinking about.
Yeah. That's impressive. I did not know that about you, that you designed a lot of those.
You what?
I didn't know that you
Didn't
designed
you?
a lot of that. Mm-mm.
Yeah, most of the houses we built, I designed.
I think so, yeah.
Like without a formal background, how did you know like weight-bearing beams or?
Oh, I didn't know that. I just drew the floor plan I wanted, and they had to figure that out. That wasn't my problem.
That wasn't my problem.
This is what I want. No, you make it
But
work.
the architect would give me trouble a lot of times,
Oh, yeah?
and Don would fix it.
Yeah.
He knew more than the architect anyway,
Wow.
right?
No, yeah.
Remember, we'd have the plans drawn because you had to do that. You had to have a licensed architect to get, whatever.
How
And
did he know that without having like formal schooling that he knew?
Don?
Yeah.
Well, he went to school,
But,
and,
like, he
and
didn't
it
go
just
to
came natural to him.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He didn't go to school to be an architect though. Like how did he know more than the architect?
Well, I think he knew more than the architects because he was hands-on when you build something.
Okay.
You know what works and what doesn't,
Right.
And they'd insist on certain things, and Don would have to just, okay, whatever, and do it the way he
What he wanted
felt
to
was
do,
best, right? Remember when we had one particular architect that did most of our drawings off of my sketches, and he'd always change my sizes in my rooms. I wanted them a certain size and that, but he'd always have them smaller when it would come back. Don said, "Don't worry about it. He just don't have the walls right." Or he'd have
Wow.
8-inch walls on the inside. You don't do that. So he'd take up, a half a foot of my room space doing that, sometimes more. Anyway, other than that, but he just had I'm sure glad he went into that trade because he was good at it, And the
Well,
kids,
sounds-
I think they all enjoy doing that trade too. Greg, he's a trim expert, like building fancy stairways, and that's all he does.
Finishing stuff. Right?
Finish work and fancy stairways. Because some of these buildings are houses he's built, like in D.C. and where else?
Maryland.
Maryland, and that from Ohio, they would call him to come do, or they do call him to do the finish work on the houses. And some of the stairways are real complicated. But those people build 7,000, 8,000 square foot houses. That's like 3 times as big as my house out there.
Uh-huh.
This house is 1,500.
Yeah.
So that's a
They're
pretty
huge
big
houses.
house. I don't know a bathroom for every bedroom, I don't understand that.
It's a lot to take care of.
Well, yeah, they probably got maids or something to
Yeah.
help them, whatever. But anyway, and then
But
Jim,
so Greg's pretty talented at that kind of finishing work.
what now?
Greg's pretty talented at that finishing work.
Yeah, that's his specialty. And then the boys, Jim and Donnie, they're good at designing, and they build houses from scratch. Well, Greg's done that too, and remodeling and stuff. But now that's what all he does is usually the finish work, I think, right?
Yeah.
But I think they all pick up that stuff from Don, but as far as the figuring out the stuff. Because there's a lot of the carpenters and the builder initially have to figure out, and I think they're all good at that. And designing, Jim's good at designing, so is Donnie, really. And they get that part from me.
That Donnie quite a bit of design part.
What?
Donnie's better to the design part. That's kind of
Well, there's also a lot of ability that's available to him now on the internet. I mean, doesn't he have these special programs that he can put it on the internet and it can show it in 3D?
Yeah.
Oh, the computer models. Yeah.
Yeah, what do they call that? The programs.
CAD drawing.
CAD drawings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where me, I mean, I could just had to do it in my mind
And sketch it
of
out.
how, but that just came natural to me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew where closets should be, because I'm a woman, you know. Men sometimes they don't put the closets and things where they belong.
You could tell a house that was designed by a man and a house that was designed by a woman.
Well, yeah, Julie sees a lot of that in her real estate. In fact, she's got one right now that she's having a hard time selling because a man designed it and had it built. Yeah, but he was a man by himself, see? When a woman comes in there, I don't like this, you know.
So you've talked a lot about the boys. What about Julie and Lisa? What do you think what kind of characteristics have they gotten from you or from Grandpa?
Lisa, for instance, she's like her dad. She can sell anything to anybody. So she's in the sales business, you know. And she's real adaptable to making friends. And she's not shy at all, you know. Well, Julie, I don't think is either, but that's one talent that Lisa has. She's a lot like her dad. And she can also do a lot of things. She comes and does things for me as a girl, you know. And Julie's, she's good at like the real estate business. And she knows a lot because of learning a lot from her dad and being around the building business, you know, and stuff, and the boys. And I just think they appreciate nice things in life, you know.
Yeah.
And she's pretty capable, isn't she, being by herself and all she does. Yeah.
She's been very independent.
Huh?
She's been very independent.
Yeah, she does. I mean, is.
So do you have any special messages for us, anything you want us to know, things that are important in life, anything like that? Anything else you want us to know?
Well, I think that you should have strong faith in God and depend on His guidance. It's one of the most important things. And if you work for someone, that you should do the very best that you can. And I know most of my kids are like that, my grandkids that I know of. I don't know of anybody that's a slacker or whatever you call it.
No slackers in his family.
No, what was David? He called it something. Something he used to call our kids. Not a something in the bunch or something. It's some word he used to. You remember what it was? Anyway, David is Don's brother. You know, that's the closest brother, David.
Yeah. Would you say that you're pretty proud of your family?
What's that?
Would you say that you're very proud of your family?
I am. I'm really proud of them. Yeah. They're good people.
Yes, they are.
And I think, yeah, and none of them would ever mistreat anybody.
They're all very kind.
Yeah. And all my grandkids are like that too, I think. I don't know of a bad one yet.
That's good. If you do, don't say it on the video.
Oh. Shape up, huh?
I have a couple of just follow-up questions. How did your husband propose to you?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. I don't know if I remember that.
Well,
It wasn't anything formal, I can tell you that. He didn't get down on his knees or nothing.
No, you didn't make a big show of it. It was
We just kind of knew it,
Yeah.
you know.
What
Not
was
long
your-
after we started, and we were pretty young. I mean, he was 17, I was 14, you know. But we were both more mature for our ages, I think,
Mhm.
because of being more independent.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you remember about your wedding day?
Oh, a terrible day.
It was a terrible.
Well, because I worked, I didn't have a car. I worked downtown. I had to pick up my own dress and my veil. I don't know, I think I had the dress already out there. And then I was at my friend's house that I got dressed at. Because I worked downtown, okay? And Don's family and them, they lived out in Oakville. It's pretty far, you know, on the bus. And I had to go, and it was raining. It was a terrible day. And at that time, they didn't have hairspray. The only time you could get hairspray was if you went to the shop. Okay, I was lucky. I got, when a friend did my hair for me in the shop and put the spray on, or it was raining, and I had to run around and do all this stuff, and I was sick on top of it.
Oh no.
That was a bad day.
But you wouldn't be able to tell it from the pictures.
Huh?
You have some nice pictures from your
I
wedding.
do. You never
You
know
never know.
that I felt so bad.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was in October, the end of October. So you never, it's unpredictable what kind of weather you're gonna have. But we were lucky. We got married in a little Christian church that was on Morganford. It's a wedge there, one street. I'm trying to think what that other street was. Huh?
Leona?
That was where the church was. But our little church that we got married in was torn down
Oh, okay.
about 5 or 6 years later, I think, and they built a commercial building. Oh no, a filling station.
Oh.
They tore down that beautiful little church. But I had a beautiful wedding though, and a friend of my sister's did all the flower work. It was a candlelight wedding. It was beautiful in that little church. It was really nice. She did a beautiful job, and it was packed. I mean, because it wasn't a big church, you know. So, and then we didn't have a big reception or anything. His parents had a little reception at their home. So we couldn't afford a reception, you know.
Did your mom help pay, or did his parents help pay? You paid all yourself?
Well, my brother was my, like
He
the
gave you
father
away?
would walk you down the aisle. That was nice. I have that all in an album.
Which brother?
Eugene, my oldest. Yeah. And my sister Betty was in my one of my bridesmaids. And Don's brother David was also in our wedding, and two couples that were friends all those years we went together, and were in our wedding. They're still my friends. In fact, I still have dinner with them. I'll go to their house or they'll come to mine, and now they're both, actually, the one couple that was Skip was Don's best man. He passed away after a few years after Don did. So she remarried, and he's a very nice person. And but they're both in Friendly Village Retirement Center up here on Gravois,
Oh, okay.
and it's really nice, you know. So I've been there a couple times for dinner since they've been in there. And now Pat and George, they also moved there this past few months.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't go there because you got to buy into there, and it's pretty expensive.
Okay.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
But that's why I bought this house.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, I could have someone actually stay in that extra bedroom I have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go to a place like that, you know.
You want to be able to be home.
If I don't have to. You never know, do you?
What was the most romantic thing your husband ever did for you?
That, I'd have to think about that for a while. Let me think. That's a long, I'd have to think about that for a little bit.
Sort of kind of similar. A lot of these are like.
I don't think we had much time.
Not much time for romance.
We started having kids right away.
What was the hardest thing about being a first-time mom? What is something that you did not expect?
I didn't think about it. I just did what I had to do, really. I mean, I was pretty young to be on, but then I had two all of a sudden. And, well, I don't know. I think the hardest part, I guess, was before we got that first little nice apartment that we fixed up. It was really a mess when we moved in there, and we worked really hard to make it nice. I mean, but we were so thankful to get a decent place that we could do something with, you know. That was hard on us, but I think the hardest part on us was when we built our first house. Yeah, because we had to do everything ourselves, pretty much. And we had 3 kids, you know. But once we were in there, it was like we had a mansion, I'll tell you, because we were so used to little places, you know. I guess, I don't know, we just didn't have time to think about things being hard. We just did what we had to do, you know. Oh.
I just thought of a story, and you'll have to remind me of the details of it. When you were a kid, you were living somewhere and there was some guy that was living there was some guy that was living in your attic that you didn't know about?
That is something when I was a kid,
Yeah, tell that story.
Those are interesting stories. Well, we think after, evaluating everything, that
Is that the dog?
we think there really was someone living in the attic. There was a draft dodger.
Oh, okay.
Did you ever hear of those?
Yeah, the draft dodgers.
Because there was someone coming in our house, in our apartment. We saw him. I saw him. My mom saw him. Our cousins saw him. But he would always try to do it at a time that he didn't think we would see him. Like when we're supposed to be sleeping and come into our room, and never did bother us or hurt us. Yeah.
That's
And
crazy.
And you guys just let him stay there.
huh?
You guys did not call the police. You just said, you know what?
We didn't do that. I don't know. Because we weren't sure. I mean, I don't know. Don't ask me why she wouldn't call somebody to find out. Because we didn't figure out that he actually was living in the attic. We didn't figure that out. But he was. Because there was a secret door in that hall closet. You know, in those days, the ceilings were so high in the buildings, you had long stairways, you know. And it seemed like a lot of stuff would happen around that hall closet and that stairway. So he'd come out somehow out of that attic into the closet, because they found out also later, I think that was when we were in California, my mom and I, that there was a secret area above the closet, because they were real tall closets, that moved up and down. And of course at the time we didn't know that. But another thing, my mom used to accuse us kids of giving our food away. But it was disappearing and we didn't do it. But she said, you kids are feeding the neighborhood, you know. I said, no, we aren't. Yeah,
So
things
she was
would
blaming it on you, and it was that guy that was in the attic.
Huh?
She was blaming it on you, but it.
Yeah, she thought us kids were just giving it to the neighbors, to the kids, you know. But yeah, things like that. But there were some odd things that happened that were what's the word? That several people actually saw.
Yeah.
It wasn't just one person seeing something and nobody believing them. It was a number of people, like my cousins, my mom, me, Betty. Oh, we were. This is a funny story. I got to tell you this one. When we were kids, they had a long hallway that went along the bedrooms and down the front stairs and to the back to the kitchen. That's a long, long hallway, and it had a skylight above, and we used to sit under that skylight and play cards and games and stuff. It was real light there, and so Betty's friend and Betty and I were playing cards or some kind of game. And Betty was here where she could see down the hallway like that, okay, where that closet was. And it turned because the stairway had to go down, okay. And she's sitting there, and Betty was always a hairy, scary type person, you know, and get, what's the word, that you can't speak when you want to,
Okay.
Stutter.
you know.
Stutter?
Yeah, no, she wouldn't say
Just
anything.
freeze?
You know. So anyway, had our backs to that hallway, and then she was here, and she could see down the hallway, and she could also see that door to the closet. And she's sitting there, and all of a sudden she sees that door coming open by itself. So what does she do? She gets up and, without a word to us, being the other girl, which was Betty's best friend, didn't say nothing to us, and goes out the back door and out to the porch. And she's like dumbfounded or something, afraid, you know, and didn't say, hey, let's get out of here, you know.
She just left you there.
She just left us there. And so we went out and said, where'd she go? It's her turn, whatever. And so we went out there to see where she was, and she's sitting on the porch all kind of, you know, shocked or something. I guess that's the word. Like, what's the matter with you? Why'd you go? It's your turn, you know. She said, and then she finally got it out. I saw that closet door open by itself, you know. And we're saying, really, you know? And we're talking about it. And all of a sudden we hear somebody walking down the hallway. And so, we both all was jumped up. And me and Wilma were in front of her going down the stairs. And she was behind us. Well, we weren't going fast enough for her. So she gets a hold of the banners and jumps over us. Tumbles down the rest of the stairs and knocks herself out. And, of course, we were all excited. So we run in to get Mr. Adams, was his name, the owner of the bakery and the building. And he come out and to tend to Betty, because she was knocked out, honestly. And we ran down to Aunt Cora's house, which was 3 or 4 houses down across the street, and told them. And that was funny, though, really funny. But that's the way she was. She
She knocked herself out.
yeah.
That's great.
But to jump over our heads,
Yeah. She must have been really scared.
I mean, that's the truth, you know. And, but anyway, Wilma was her best friend. And then my sister, Eileen, she had a friend named Wilma that she was her best friend. It's kind of funny because later in life, when my kids were little, and we lived out in our first house, her and I both worked at Famous Bar. They always call us during the holidays to work those 3 months during the holidays to work at Famous Bar. And so from way back, you know, we were still friends with this lady that I used to pick her up on Kings Highway area in there at her house, and we'd go to work, and then I'd take her back home and drive all the way back out there, Arnold, by myself. Don never wanted me to go to work. You know, he always said, you don't have to work, you don't have to go. I said, but I want to, you know. But I did. I guess I did that 3 or 4 years. And I'd make pretty good money for a few months there. I'd always make $300 or $400. That's not very much money nowadays. I mean, you make that in a week, right? Took me 3 months, you know. But I'd always use that for Christmas, you know, things like that, something special we wanted. But anyway, Wilma, my sister, the one that I worked with at Famous, I started to think about something about her. Oh, what was it? Why do I do this?
I know you got sidetracked.
You have to
Started
edit
thinking
that.
about something else.
But anyway,
You were talking about both of your sisters had a friend named Wilma.
yeah, and it's really funny that all those years after that, because they were in high school when they became friends, and she's the one that stayed with my sister while we went to California.
Oh, okay.
Now, Betty did come out to California for a short time. She didn't like it, so she got to go back home.
Oh, but you
And,
did.
and my aunt stayed with my aunt. They didn't want me.
Aw.
I was a wild child, I guess. I don't know.
What did
Too
you
much
do that
for
was so
them.
wild?
I don't know. But anyway, she got to come back and stay, but I was really lonesome out there because I was by myself most of the time.
Did you make any friends out there?
Huh?
Did you make any friends?
Well, because every time I did, we'd move.
Yeah.
So, and same way when we came back here. I actually, by moving so much, got behind a grade. They wouldn't let me, because wasn't at one school long enough. So I missed a half of a grade. I guess that's how they did it then.
Okay.
And I had to make that up in the 7th grade. I went to summer school,
Okay.
and I made that up.
Was school pretty easy for you?
What?
Was school pretty easy for you? Did you do well?
I hated school.
That must be where you're
Well, because I didn't at first until we just started moving around so much. And it was so difficult for me because you'd start one school and they'd start on a program, okay? By the time I went to another school, they were over with it or something, you know, always like
It's
that.
hard to keep up with all.
Yeah, so I missed a lot, especially in math. Now, I was real good at English and reading and that sort of thing. That came natural. But math, it really put me behind. But I got better when I got in 7th grade, and I went to summer school. And I did really good in 8th grade. But, boy, those few years in 5th, 6th, and terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be hard to keep up with all of that.
Yeah, and so I guess that's why I didn't, you know, until you can stay at one school for any length of time, it's hard, you know. That's
Do you
what.
know how what Grandpa felt about school? Did he like being in
Grandpa?
school? Yeah, Grandpa.
He was really good at math,
Yeah.
and I was bad at it. And I was good at reading and all that, and he wasn't that good at that. So I guess we were a pretty good combination.
Yeah, there you go.
He could figure pretty much anything out in math.
Yeah.
And but me,
Did you always want to be a housewife and a mother, or is
that's what we did then. I mean, that's what women looked forward to at that time. Nowadays, it's a career first, you know. That wasn't like that then, you know. So I never really thought about it, to tell you the truth. So that's just the way things have changed, you know. So
prior to marriage, what was the wildest thing you ever did that you can share?
oh, I can share.
That you want to share?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think I was ever too wild about it. Oh, God, I'd have to think about that too. I don't know. I was pretty down to earth. I mean, responsible, and I don't think I ever did. No,
Did you ever get in trouble for anything?
at home. Well, I had an uncle You remember Uncle Ernie? Remember him? Okay. My mother's brother. He always thought I was a terrible child. And he had Lois is my cousin. In fact, she just called me when I was trying to get ready for you guys to come. Called me twice. I got to call her back. I haven't talked to her in years. But I called her the other day because I was concerned about my sister after I talked to her. And I've been wanting to call my cousin, talk to her, and say, we need to get together here. One of us before it's too late, you know. And I also called my other cousin in Florida, same way. And I hadn't talked to either one of them in 2 or 3 years. And in fact, Lois, it was longer than that. But I do communicate with my cousin that's in Florida over Facebook. So I communicate with her somewhat. But Lois, I hadn't talked to her in several years. And so she called me now twice this morning. I got to call her back this evening. But I don't know what I was getting at.
Uncle Ernie.
Oh, Uncle was her dad, my mother's brother. I'm glad you can keep track of what. But like I said, he always thought I was a wild child, you know. Well, I was. I mean, you know, had a mind of my own, that's for sure. But I was never a very good eater. I didn't like a lot of vegetables. I like spinach, that's what I like. And I like pork and beans. And potatoes. But I didn't like peas, and I didn't like carrots, and he would fuss at me all the time because I would go there and stay with them, you know, a day or two or whatever. And Bobbie was my age, their son. Lois is 3 years older than us. But me and Bobbie were always in trouble for some reason. He'd find some reason to ground us or something, you know. But anyway. But
What was the worst thing you did that he grounded you?
I don't know. I think he just, because Lois was such an angel, you know. Everything we did was wrong. I don't know. I don't know. Bobbie was always in trouble, and I was always right there with him.
Stealing?
Huh?
Was it stealing?
Oh no, we never would do anything like that.
Break anything?
That's possible. Yeah.
What about eating the vegetables out of the garden?
Oh, that was another aunt. She had a big vegetable garden. Yeah, and now they only had 3 boys, and the youngest was 3 years older. She was my sister Betty's age.
Okay.
But when they'd come to my house, my Aunt Reva was the one, you know, my mother's sister, one of her sisters, would always want to take me home. So I'd have to go with them, see. And David, who was the youngest of the 3 boys, he and I would go out to the garden with a salt shaker and eat all the ripe tomatoes. And my aunt would come out and she'd get so mad because all the ripe tomatoes were gone. And she said, what happened to, well, I don't know. We don't know. But anyway, there's another story with them that I can tell you. I was pretty young. That was before we went to California. And I was at their house once, and I didn't know how to swim yet. I probably was 7 or something like that. And they took me swimming, the 2 boys. And I didn't know how to swim. And they said that I needed to jump in and start swimming. But I don't know how to swim. You know, so they took and threw me in the deep part. And I learned to swim real quick, I can tell you that. Yeah. And when I got home, I told Aunt Rebel, boy, did they get in trouble.
They did.
They just threw me in the deep water. I'm not kidding you. That's how I learned to swim.
In a swimming pool or a lake?
I mean, I made a good attempt at it. What?
In a lake or a swimming pool?
Swimming pool. I guess it came natural.
Yeah, you learned how to swim.
I don't know. Because I did learn to be a good swimmer. Gosh. Never was afraid of the water after that.
Yeah.
The only thing I was afraid of was the high dive, to even jump off of it. And they coaxed me into doing that. This was later in life, when I was maybe 13, and my friends were trying to get me to jump off the high dive. Well, I was up there for a good half hour before I jumped off that thing. And then after I did, I thought, I'll never do that again. Never. Because it hurt my ears.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when you jump high into water, there's a pressure.
Pressure.
Oh, because I had trouble with my ears, you know. And I thought, I'll never, ever do that again.
I'm sort of bouncing back and forth, but can you tell us favorite family traditions growing up and family traditions that you carried on with your family?
I don't know.
Or Jim, you can chime in as far as like, do you remember something specifically that you guys did every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, every birthday?
Well, we always had a big meal together with everybody, right, on holidays. Well, when Don's parents were here, we took our kids and all went to their house. And I always kind of thought, oh, I'd love to stay home today, you know, because you work so hard to get Christmas ready for kids. In fact, I was always up all night Christmas Eve. I always thought I was caught up, but it never worked out that way. I was always up wrapping presents and then get about an hour of sleep before they'd come wanting to go in and unwrap the presents. Said, oh, let me sleep another 15 minutes.
That sounds like you, Grandma, doing things at the
Yeah.
last minute.
But I always stayed up every Christmas Eve night after I had kids and wrapping presents. But they had pretty good Christmases, didn't you? Oh my gosh. They'd all have 3 or 4 presents, you know. And so that was a lot of wrapping, you know.
When we wake up, Dad would have his spotlights on us.
Oh, that's in that disc that I had put on one thing. They come in and they can't. The lights are so bright in their faces they can't hardly see the Christmas tree.
From the video camera that he had, or from the whatever kind of camera that was in.
Yeah, and then when the girls came, the boys, they were bossing the girls around what they could do and what they couldn't do. Couldn't open the present until Mom and Dad said, okay. Remember that? Yeah. And that shows on the pictures. You can tell.
But they're bossing them around.
But a lot of the stuff on the movies is a lot of Christmases and Easter and they always, when we started going to church, we had a lot of pictures, or we do, of them all dressed up, because they had to be dressed up. And I was very particular about that, about them looking their very best. And on like Easter, the boys had to have sport coats and they had to have hats, and the girls had to have fancy dresses, and a lot of them I made for the girls. But I liked to sew then. I used to sew everything. I'd sew the drapes, you know, the bedspreads, everything.
Wow.
And clothes for the kids. But I stayed home all the time, so I was able to do that.
Right.
And
you were very particular about what you wore too. Like you would get dressed up just to go to the store, right?
I wouldn't go out of the house without being. I wouldn't even go out in the yard. Yeah, I was pretty particular about how my family looked. You know, I don't know, but I guess now my mom was like that. I guess I got that from her. I don't know, but she was particular how we looked. You know, I think I was a pretty good cook, and I was particular about what I cooked. I always had a meal. We never had pizza and junk food, and we never had candy or soda in the house when my kids were little. Never. The only time that I got soda in the house was when Don and I went out and we had a babysitter, right? then they got their popcorn and their soda, and you know, we've supplied for while we were gone, you know. But other than that, we never had that kind of stuff in the house. It was like a treat if they got it. And I fixed a regular meal every night. I had a good meal for us. Well, actually, another thing, what was good when my kids were little, we bought into a freezer plan. And we got a freezer, and we got a half of a cow, or whatever, a quarter of a cow, whatever. It had all kinds of cuts of meat.
Right.
Good meat. Oh, my gosh. I mean, and I think we got it for 59 cents a pound. Yes, a whole. So we had a lot of good meat, and that I always had a good meal. Roast and steaks and you know, good cuts of meat. So we always had good meals. And even on Sunday, we always had a good chicken dinner or something like that. And sometimes, though, when we started going to church all the time, we would go out after church. And the boys, when they got a certain age, they hated going down to St. Genevieve or somewhere like that to go to dinner. Right? I didn't know this till they hated going down there with it because they wanted to go be with their friends. But we made them stay with us. I need my soda. I mean my tea. Anyway, I've been talking a long time.
You have been. You're doing great.
You're doing great.
You guys do some talking.
This is all about you.
Yeah.
I remember.
Well, what about? Go ahead.
I remember staying at your house on the weekends and going to church with you, and we get up in the morning and have like porridge for breakfast.
Actually,
not porridge, cream of wheat.
Cream of wheat. Don would always fix breakfast on Sunday
Yes.
because I was busy getting ready
Yes.
and getting the kids ready or whatever when they were little. But anyway, I started to say something. I do that all the
We were
time.
talking about the roasts. Talking about roasts and then church and having
Yeah.
meals.
Yeah, we going out to dinner. That's what it was, and because we wanted to teach our kids how to behave in a restaurant.
How did you do that?
And the boys did fine, but the girls, Don was such a softie. I had to be the disciplinarian. Stay in your seat, you know. But no, they had to go climb on their dad's lap. And right, remember that?
Oh yeah.
And he'd let them.
Oh, you would. He was like that with us too,
Yeah.
as grandkids. Yep.
Wow, he was still eating? Come on. But anyway, they did pretty good in the restaurant, you know, once they got past that stage. But we love to go take our kids. We took our kids on vacations all the time. We went by ourselves, of course, and I thought that was important. I did think that was one thing that we should do. And we did, like on our anniversary or something like that. Anyway, Don's birthday was on 4th of July, as you know. And we always had a party with everybody when he was here. I do miss that, you know, but the kids, when they were little, he told them that everybody was celebrating his birthday.
Did they believe him?
You remember? And they believed him for a while.
Oh, wow.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That was funny. And because we had a big, you know, and firework. I never liked fireworks. I need a drink again. I never talk this much.
Yes, you do.
You were the star of today.
There's sometimes I don't talk for a whole day, or except to the dog.
Yeah.
And then when I start talking, and I get lump
Do
in
you
my
have
throat.
Do you have a memorable family vacation? Like the first time you took maybe the kids to Disney World or
Oh, we
took
never went.
Branson
We never
or-
went places. We did go to Six Flags one time with a bunch of them. That was expensive. Even then, I mean, and I hear it's pretty outrageous right now. But I never liked rides, and the kids, of course, they did. Right?
What about Merrimack Springs?
We went to Merrimack Springs, and we went to Norfolk. How is that pronounced? Norfolk Lake in Arkansas. And to-
Norfolk.
With a boat. Oh, we loved to boat. We liked to go boating and on the lake. We loved the water. The kids did too.
Did you water ski, Grandma?
Oh, I was a good water skier. I could go for miles and miles. They'd get tired of hauling me. Right? But Donnie wasn't a very good water skier. He had trouble with a knee. He had injured it when the kids were little. And so he had a hard time getting up the first time. But after he got up, he did all right. But he wasn't that wild about it, where I just loved to water ski. We went to Norfolk Lake. Oh, my God. It was so beautiful there. It was like having the lake to yourself. The reason why is that's in Arkansas, okay? And it takes about an hour or more longer to get there than Table Rock, or even longer than that.
Yeah.
But it's so beautiful there, and the lake is so clean and clear. And the reason why it's like that is because they don't allow people to build right on the water. And also, and it's really huge, isn't it? Oh, my God. But it's beautiful if you ever get a chance to go there. And I don't know, because it's been so many years since we've been there, but I imagine it's pretty much the same, that they still don't allow people to build right on it. And it's also a dry county. A dry county means they can't buy liquor in that area. So you don't have crazy people out there driving boats on the lake, you know. So it was pretty nice and safe for the kids, because we were going to Lake of the Ozarks. That got where it was so crowded and so many boats on the water at the same time, that I would be a nervous wreck with the kids water skiing. I was afraid they'd get hit before we got back to them when they fall, you know. So we quit going there, and we started going down to Norfolk. There was a lot closer lakes that we didn't know about. We could have went to, you know, like bull shows and stuff. But we did, after that, we went down to this place that had a little lodges, cabins. Remember that? On Norfolk Lake? Don't remember that? You went with us.
I know.
They're on pictures. I think they're on that disc. We took movies. But, they had a nice little restaurant there. The cabins weren't anything fancy, but they were nice and clean and spacious. And, oh, gosh, the food was so good and everything. I didn't have to cook. I like that.
That was a nice treat.
Yeah. And it wasn't that expensive either. It was just something we could afford with all the kids, you know. Glenn went with us one time.
Yeah.
Glenn, my sister's boy, he stayed with us one summer and went on vacation with us. But I got pictures of that too. I don't know if they're on the disc or if they're still pictures. But I was always a person that had a camera in my hand all the time since I was young. And that's why I got so many pictures. I got so many albums, and I got boxes of them downstairs that I need to get in albums. And I want to do that before I kick the bucket. That's one job I got to do.
You've been talking about putting those pictures in albums
I
as
know.
long as I can remember.
But I do get, every once in a while, I get one done.
You just make sure to have one of your grandkids scan them, so
Yeah.
you have access to them.
Yeah, yeah, if I could get an automated program to do that.
Oh, yeah,
It's
sure.
really time consuming.
It is.
Yeah. And then a lot of times, like, okay, I had pictures of I was always taking pictures before we got the movie cameras. And so I have tons of pictures. And so one year, I separated the pictures, like each child, and I made albums for all the kids. You got 'em, every one of them, right? You still got that?
Yeah.
You ever watch it? I mean, look at it. But like people got their pictures on the internet now.
Yeah.
I hate that. I really do. I like something I can hold in my hand, you know.
It is nice to be able to flip through the
Yeah.
albums.
But anyway, I don't have hardly any pictures of Lauren's little boys. They're on the internet.
It's all, yeah, everything's on the internet now.
Yeah. But she's got tons of pictures on there. It takes an hour to go through them. Because there are other people and other friends before I can, see all the pictures of the kids. But that's the only way I see them. I haven't seen the little one yet at all. He's walking already.
He just turned one today. I think today.
Is it today?
Recently. I
So
don't
yeah, I
know.
can't keep track of
I
that.
just saw on Facebook he turned one.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was today or.
Well, I thought, because he has to be a year, doesn't he? I don't know.
He's
It's
one,
time.
I just don't know when his birthday was.
Time. Where was it?
He's one now. I just don't know. His birthday was sometime this week.
Yeah. But like little Jack, he was just 3, wasn't he? Well, anyway, see, I can't keep track. There's too many of them.
There are a lot to keep track of.
I have to really I have a birthday book, but I don't have it filled out yet. I need to, that's another job I got to do, so I don't forget somebody's birthday, because I'm real good at forgetting.
It's hard to remember all of them.
Yeah, I'm very bad at that.
Just because Jim is here, what do you remember about him as a child?
What do I remember about
About Jim, about your son?
Jim? Well, he liked to play in the dirt a lot. When he was real little, Don built him a little sandbox out there. And he'd when he'd be because he liked to play in the dirt more than the sandbox. And they had other little trucks and everything. And when he was real, real little, he'd take the dirt and put his tongue out and let that dirt fall on his tongue. And then he'd come in, I'd got to see about it. He'd be all muddy down the front of it, all over. He didn't care. Well, and then that's when we lived in the barracks in the little apartment, And then one year we got him some little baby ducks. I know that's not a good idea, they say, but they got the biggest kick out of those. Remember the ducks? Mm-hmm. Little cute little ducks. But something got them one night. We had them in a cage, and something got to them.
Yeah, sure.
That must have started his love of birds.
Oh, maybe, yeah, because they whoever got a hold of them chewed their bill off, wasn't it?
Raccoons do that.
Yeah, probably.
That's what does, raccoons, yeah.
Yeah, terrible. But anyway, they were just. I'm glad I had them close together, because they were really company for each other. And then one time, oh my gosh, he was pretty little. He wasn't even walking yet. Donnie was pulling him in the wagon, big brother, And I was standing my mom was standing at the screen door, because I had her kind of keeping an eye on him outside. And we lived in a place where we didn't face another building, so we had a lot of privacy there in a side yard. And the other guys in the building had little kids too, and they made it real nice out there for the kids. But they knew they were supposed to stay there and never go out the other side, because that's where cars would come in. So they weren't supposed to be out there. And they come in running in the house. Jimmy comes in. He says, "There's a rabid dog out there, and he's what else? Oh, I don't know.
There's a rabies dog? Is that what
Rabid dog."
Big
And I
black
said,
rabies dog.
"Where? Oh, a brack rabid dog," and he could already talk, you know. And he was biting the kids, and he bit two of the little kids in the building, and I said, "You weren't supposed to be out there, were you?" And so it was a rabid dog, and the guys had to go out and catch it, and one of the guys got bit, but it bit two or three of the kids. Luckily, my kids were right there, and they didn't get bit.
Mm-hmm.
But they learned a lesson that day, you know.
Was Dad pretty wild as a teenager?
Huh?
Was Dad pretty wild as a teenager?
What I didn't know was probably good, you know.
Yes, probably.
I found out later, though, in years, you know.
Uh-huh.
But, yeah, they were pretty good kids, you know, considered.
They were pretty
You
lucky.
see, he doesn't think so, so
Yeah.
I don't
He's
want
got
to
some
know.
of his own stories.
They were teens more when we lived in Fenton,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, they used to sneak out, I found out, at the place we had in the townhouse in Arnold. I found that out late. You guys used to sneak out after they were supposed to be in bed?
No,
You don't remember? Oh,
Yeah.
well, somebody told me that. I can't remember who it was.
They probably did.
Yeah, but they were only, like, pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
14, 13, something like that.
What did you think when Dad hitchhiked to California?
Well, I was pretty upset because he didn't ask, you know. Yeah, when I found out about it, I was worried about him, really. But they ended up at my brother's house, right?
Yeah.
They called him. Did he come and get you wherever you were, or
No,
what?
we hitchhiked everywhere.
You hitchhiked there, too. Can you imagine that? All the way to California. Who was that with you?
All the way up the coast of California.
Well, we had to send him a plane ticket to get home.
You didn't have to. We could have stayed there.
Huh?
We didn't have to. We could have stayed there.
You would have stayed there. Oh, bull, you come home wanting a plane ticket. That's all I know.
Two different stories.
Yeah,
Did
stayed
you-
there for what? You know.
Did you
But
make-
anyway.
Did you make him come home?
Well, when I found out where he was, my brother, I think, had a hand in that a little, right?
I think so.
How old were you then?
16.
Huh?
16.
Yeah, 16. Of course, you know, when I think about what I did when I was, but that wasn't what I expected from my kids.
Yeah. Were you living
I guess I was more overprotective of my own.
Right.
Yeah, because of being on pretty much on my own when I was a kid.
Right.
So, and then Lisa did it.
Lisa did too?
Lisa went to Florida with some friends. Oh, I called the police. In Jefferson County, that was where we lived. We had to call the county where we lived in, and I reported her missing. And her and her girlfriend did it.
Her and Laura.
Yeah, no one think, was it Laura?
Laura, yeah.
Was somebody that she went with, took off and left her there by herself. I wouldn't think Laura would do that. But anyway, Laura's still her friend. I see her once in a while. I didn't think it was Laura. But anyway, maybe there was 3 of them. I don't know what the deal was, but can you imagine that?
So they left her in Florida by herself?
Yeah. And she makes a friend with a guy that was from here too and rides back with him. I said, do you realize you didn't know that person?
Oh man.
So is the discipline to just get smacked, or it's just a little?
She wanted to go
yelling?
to Florida on spring break. And I said no.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, because what you would hear about what went on, you know, and I didn't want her to go. She was like 16. pretty young.
Yeah, something like that.
Anyway, I reported her missing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I contacted whoever she went with, and they didn't know where she was. And so, what a funny thing about that, she did get home, but after that, several months, the police called me. They said, we got your daughter down in Jefferson County, and they detained them, whoever she was with. And they said, well, here she is, you can talk to her, because we found her. And I get her on the phone, I said, I don't think that's my daughter. She's been home a long time. And the girl gets on the phone and she says, will you tell these people I'm not your daughter? Yeah, because her name was Lisa Anderson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was really, I said, I'm so sorry. I talked to the police again. I said, I'm so sorry I didn't call and tell you that she came home.
Oh, my God.
That poor girl, when they found out and then looked at their records,
Uh-huh.
well, that was a good thing to know that they do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing about it,
Mm-hmm. That's
you know.
funny.
That just happened to Blake.
Huh?
And
Blake did this?
Blake
Yeah,
went
he-
to Colorado with his friend.
I can't understand him.
Yeah. Blake went to Colorado with his friend.
And without asking.
No, they knew.
Oh, he knew. You knew. Well, that's a.
We wouldn't call if he lost his cell phone. So we reported him missing.
Oh, he wouldn't call you like he was supposed
He
to.
supposedly lost his phone.
Yeah, my
Okay.
younger brother.
Oh, and you didn't call and check in. Is that what you're saying?
So we reported him missing. That's how we got in touch with the police. Finally caught up with him because they had a car accident, and they wouldn't let him go unless he talked to us.
I didn't know all this. When did this happen?
A couple summers ago?
Well, how old was he? 17? 18? I don't know.
It was last summer. Yeah.
How old are they now? I
They're
can't.
19. So it was after he graduated high school.
Yeah.
So
17.
last summer. A year ago.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know anything about that. Oh.
Like father, like son.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, payback.
Yep.
Oh,
Paybacks are tough.
yeah. Yeah, they get their, you hear about all this stuff and it scares you to let them do anything, that happens.
Yeah.
Well, look at that one girl that went to, I think they finally found who murdered her. I shouldn't be talking about that. That's not
Okay.
pleasant. Oh, what else? What about Jim? Let's see. About Donnie pulling him in the wagon. Yeah. Donnie was pulling him because I don't think he was walking yet. My mom was standing at the store watching the screen door watching him, and Donnie stopped. Well, when he stopped, Jim stood up. And Donnie didn't know he stood up, and then he started pulling it again, and then Jim toppled over on the back of his head on the concrete. Oh my God, he split his head open. And my mom runs and gets him, and then she's yelling, and I run to the door, and she comes in the door, she's got her hand on the back of his head, and the blood's running down. Oh, well, I was trying to get her hand away, and she wasn't taking her hand away. So I had to pull him away from her, and I run next door because she was so hysterical. Hysterical is the word. And I ran next door to get help because I couldn't get any help from her, that's for sure. And yeah, he split his head open pretty bad. But Donnie didn't mean to move when he didn't know he was standing up.
Accident, yeah. Did they ever intentionally hurt each other?
When they were teenagers, they got into it. And they were constantly, it seems there for a while, at each other's throat, him and Donnie. Well, I think it was Donnie that Don let him have a motorcycle, and I didn't talk to Don for 2 weeks because he let him have that motorcycle. I didn't want him to have no motorcycle, but he bugged and bugged and bugged his dad till he let him get that motorcycle. Well, it was broke all the time, thank God. I was so glad that it was broke half the time. It was one of those crazy looking things. I hated that motorcycle. But anyway, Donnie took it out without permission from Jim and trashed. What did he do?
He wrecked it, yeah.
He wrecked it?
He went into a, didn't he go off into a side of the road or something?
And the tank or something like that.
Well, anyway, he messed it up, and Jim was mad, and they were fighting. And then they just seemed to be at each other's throat there for a while. So Don, we were down at Bob and Charlotte's. Bob and Charlotte, Don's brother, and his wife lived down the street from us, you know. A house came for sale while we built our house, and then that one came for sale, and we called him. I don't know. Donnie says he's the one that told him. Whatever. Somebody said there's a house down the street for sale, and they bought it and moved there. That was nice because the kids could all play together or run around together, whatever. My boys were a little older than their oldest, because their oldest was Greg's age. But anyway, we were down there, and the boys were at it again, and Don got mad because I wasn't feeling good. I was having a lot of medical problems at that time, and I wasn't feeling good, and he knew it upset me that they were at each other's throat, because I didn't like my kids fighting, you know. And he made him go back up to the house and fight it out. And I followed him because I wasn't going to have any of that, you know. And he made me, he said, get back upstairs, I'm handling this. That's the only time he ever talked to me like that.
Aw, he was trying to protect you.
God, well, I wouldn't do it for a while, you know. Finally, whatever. I said, I don't like them fighting. Why are you making them fight? You know?
Why are you making them fight?
But he wanted them to quit fighting all the time.
Right.
So he thought if he made them fight, then they'd quit. I
Right.
think that worked, didn't it?
Who won?
But I don't know. Did you
Same
actually
thing.
fight when I left?
Oh, yeah.
Dad, who won that fight? Do you remember?
But they wouldn't fight while I was
did?
there. What was that?
Dad says he won the fight.
Oh, okay, whatever. Anyway, I wasn't there. And they wouldn't fight while I was there because they knew how I didn't like that. What's the matter, honey? I think she wants to go out. Do you want to go out? Hmm?
She just came in.
You just came inside. Go lay down. Go on.
There you go. Come here.
She's a good dog. She really is. I can leave her alone, and she never bothers anything. She won't even eat or drink while I'm gone.
Wow.
Because I'll fill her water to make sure she's got a lot of water. You can tell she never hardly touched it.
Yeah.
But she's afraid she's going to have to go to the bathroom while I'm gone.
Yeah.
Well, I leave her for 8 and 9 hours at a time.
Wow.
Anyway, she'll probably last longer than me. Donnie's going to take her. I already made arrangements for that. Because Donnie's got a fenced yard, and he's got another dog. They get along,
Yeah.
and they like her, you know. At least Jim's already got a zoo at his house.
Yes, he
He doesn't need another dog.
No.
And Lisa she couldn't take her because she's gone most of the time.
Yeah.
And then Julie, she's already got dogs, and they just let them run wild
Yeah.
out there with no fence or nothing. And besides, they probably beat her up anyway,
Yeah.
because they're big dogs, you know. But anyway, so Donnie's going to take her, you know, if I don't last as long as she does.
You're a spitfire. I see you lasting a long time.
Oh yeah.
I hope
Long
not.
time. I hope not. What?
I don't want to be here if I can't take care of myself.
Yeah, what else do you want to share?
I want to be able to take care of myself, or I don't want to be here.
Yes.
Oh,
Do you have
I'm
anything
sorry.
else on that list that we haven't?
Huh?
Do you have anything else on the list that you haven't?
Oh, I
talked
don't
about?
know. I don't know. I've just, I know I've been talking too long.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
I can't think of anything. I think we pretty well covered it.
I think one other thing, you were talking about 14 presidents. You've lived through 14 presidents. Do you have any specific memories more about politics and how that?
I don't know if I ought to get into
okay,
that.
Okay. I understand. Totally understand.
All I know, I'll just say one thing.
Okay.
That I think it's nothing like it used to be. I mean, the people, I think they're too critical of our president. I don't care if you like him or not. I didn't like Obama, and I don't think people went around criticizing as much as they do Trump. I mean, maybe they're right. Who knows? I don't know. We don't know until the man gets a chance to do what he wants to do. But I'm just saying, I think that they're disrespectful nowadays of the president, and I don't think that's right. That's all I got to say.
Do you just think it starts from Trump, or what other presidents in history have you liked or?
I liked Reagan, and I liked John F. Kennedy, but I don't think the Democratic Party is like they were, because I was a Democrat all my life, because that's what we were. But I don't think there's the same anymore.
That's what Grandpa Anderson was.
Yes.
He was a Democrat. When
He was in Congress and a senator, but they're not like they were then, you know?
Is there any specific date in history that is very memorable to you? Kennedy being assassinated, launching
That was-
of,
Yeah.
one of
Well,
the,
that was a real tragedy, really, that happened, you know. And I don't think they've ever really solved the mystery of who really did that.
anything as far as the wars. Gosh, so much has happened through history. It's hard for me to know any one thing. That
Well, I
maybe-
can tell you, I think that people stood together in World War II and were more patriotic, and everybody gave what they could and did what they could and worked together, and I think that's why we won the war. Because everybody did their part, no matter what, even little kids. We went around with wagons and collected scrap metal. We worked hard at selling what they called stamps, and I'm not even sure I understand how that worked, because they had a full book. Anyway, I could look it up on. I should have done it anyway before I even mentioned
okay.
it. But there was when they bought so many stamps, it was, I don't know, it was beneficial. Whatever they did, like bonds, war bonds, and all that went to help our military, you know. But everybody was real enthusiastic about doing all that. And it seems like today there's too many people that are just critical and hateful about, you know, what's going on in the government. I'm not saying the government's perfect. We're far from it. But it just seems like all this hate that everybody's... I mean, the things that they're saying, you don't say you're going to want the president assassinated. That's criminal, I think. That's what I'm saying. I think it's not...
Regardless of who the president
but I...
is.
Huh?
Regardless of who the president
Of
is. it's not
regardless,
appropriate.
right. I wouldn't think anybody should have said that about Obama or any other president.
Right.
You know, you don't do that, but they do now. And celebrities, I mean, I don't know, I think they should be charged with a crime to do that. To suggest somebody assassinate the president? I mean, what do you think the rest of the world thinks of us?
Right. What do you think? What do you think the rest of the world
Yeah.
thinks of us?
Huh?
What do you think the rest of the world thinks of us?
Well, I do know it's embarrassing that our own people are suggesting that our own president be assassinated, right? That's what I think. And I just wonder I don't know what they think. I mean, like you say, I don't, it just seems, do you ever see any other country doing that? Much?
No, I would think they do it.
I'm sure it happens.
Nothing like to the extent that they're doing now with all these riots. And what good does rioting and violence do? You know, I mean, I know they had riots when Martin Luther King was fighting for civil rights, but he didn't promote it. Like some of these organizations we got now, they should be outlawed, I think.
You know, talking about Martin Luther King, what was it like during desegregation? What do you remember about that?
Well, you know, he was right, you know, about what he was trying to achieve. But because he did that, then he got assassinated too, you know. And that was wrong, you know. And
What was
but
it like
there's
during-
nothing like him anymore. And these people they don't have the same purpose.
What do you remember about like the segregation time when there were different bathrooms and things like that, and then when things?
I don't think that's right. I think it's totally wrong.
What do you remember having to do? Like, do you remember using the white swimming pool or?
Yes, I do. Like I told you, we used to go to this fairgrounds park to go swimming. Well, they didn't let the black in with the white. After the white got finished using the pool, then they let the black in. You know, but people didn't think anything of it. I didn't know any different. You know, I was just a little kid. But then when we went to Louisiana, that's a southern state, okay? I saw stuff there that was really uncalled for, and I was against it. I mean, like the servicemen, they're all our military, you know, and they fight together, they do everything together. And yet those people down there, if white soldiers were working with black, they'd confront them. Yeah. Say, why are you walking with him? You get over on the other side of the street. And well, our guys, like Don and them, they were ready to fight, you know. And the guy that it happened to, he said, oh, I'll just do it. Don't get into a confrontation about it. I thought that was terrible. And then
But Grandpa stood up for it. Grandpa stood up for him, and
yeah, they were just walking down the street with their fellow
soldier,
serviceman, or whatever they were. I mean, I'm talking about, I don't know what the word is, but anyway, that's the way they were down there, even then.
Yeah.
And that was in 51, 52? What was 52? Because we didn't get down there to the end of 51. So it was in 52, yeah.
And then do you remember when everything was desegregated?
Well, I remember some terrible things happening down the South, you know, that they were, desegregation came in, and that, I think his name was Wallace, mayor or governor or whatever he was down there, he defied that, huh?
He was the governor of Georgia.
Yeah, and he defied he wasn't letting the black into the school, what they were ordered to do.
Right.
But I think he got prosecuted for that. Oh, they sent in the National Guard or something. Yeah, I remember all that now. I didn't before, but I remember that now. Yeah, that was wrong, you know. But anyway, it was some of the stuff that they would do. Okay, I was on the train coming home when Don went to maneuvers for 3 months, and I decided to come home. I didn't tell you about that part. He went on maneuvers for 3 months to Texas, and I just got pregnant. I was so sick, and I couldn't keep anything down at all. And I had to pack up our stuff while I was sick like that, because they tell them one day, while they're at the base, they can't go back home. because they got to get ready to take off to maneuvers.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even know one of the officers had to come to my door when I was expecting him to come home for dinner. And I didn't answer the door. I was always afraid to if Don wasn't there. So I asked, "Who is it?" And he told me who it was. I said, "What do you want?" And because I was expecting Don to come home. He said, and he told me through the door that he was, what do they call it? Oh, confined to the base. I thought, what do you do? He said, no, everybody is, because they're preparing to take off to maneuvers for Texas for 3 months.
Yeah,
And they wouldn't let him come home.
They did that to check their readiness of the troops. They bug them. They also would notify them, and they wanted to see how quickly they get together,
Get organized.
get organized.
And so,
So it's what the military does.
yeah, but they could do whatever they wanted, you know. And so, of course, he eventually got to come home a day or so, and then I had to hurry. They were going to leave in a week or less. I had to hurry and get our stuff together. We didn't have any furniture because we rented a furniture unit, but our personal things, I had to get that all ready myself, because they made them stay at the base to get their gear and everything ready. And then he went to maneuvers for 3 months, and I came home because I was so sick. And a lot of the ladies, they wanted me to stay there with them because they were going to rent. They were going to all stay in the same house. I don't think so. You wouldn't want me around. I'm too sick, you know. And I was glad I came home because I couldn't keep nothing down. And so I lost a lot of weight. I went down to 80 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, well, I didn't weigh very much, so when I lost weight, you know. And I finally got that doctor, and I called him and bawled him out. I said, you got to do something for me. I'm gonna lose this baby if you don't give me something to help me keep my food down. I would keep it down maybe 15 minutes, and I'd just pray, oh, if it would stay down. The baby was getting the nourishment. I didn't get it. But as long as I had it enough, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then by the time Don was coming back, then I started getting better. And he got something to help me keep my food down. But I was staying with my mom. She had a job as a nanny. Oh, no, she wasn't a nanny. What the heck was she there? Anyway, she worked for these rich people. And that's when we kind of broke up housekeeping anyway, when she started doing that. Because my brothers went off and got married and stuff. But anyway, the lady, she knew me. Because I'd come and several times to pick my mom up and take her place, and before we left for Louisiana. And she told my mom, when she found out that I was coming back and I was so sick, and they were leaving for vacation for 3 months. Now, isn't that something? They were leaving, and Don was leaving, and I needed somewhere to go. Yeah.
Worked out.
And she said, you bring Bobbie here, and you let her stay with you while we were gone.
That's nice.
In their nice mansion.
They're nice mansion.
Of course, she had her quarters, and that's where we stayed. But my mom, and she said, you try to get her well.
Oh, that was really nice.
And she'd bake these delicious meals for me, and I'd be so hungry, and I'd eat 15 minutes at, ugh.
Oh, no.
And that went on for a month or two before I called the doctor and said, I still can't keep, you've got to do something. You know, I'm down to 80 pounds, you know, I look like walking death. I did. You can see the pictures of me. I was so thin and so pale. I was so sick. Anyway, finally, by the time then I got recovered and Don was coming back, then I was over that. That was a nightmare. I was 3 months pregnant. I'd lost weight.
Wow.
That's why, well, I didn't gain very much with any of my kids. I only gained about 20, 25 pounds. I
You
never
were pretty
gained more
tiny
than
to
that.
begin with.
Huh?
You were pretty tiny to begin with.
But it was all here.
Yes, it was.
It was, you know. But a lot of my friends, they'd gained 40 and 50 pounds.
Mhm.
They couldn't get rid of it.
Mhm.
I used to pray to keep some of it. Because I'd have the baby, and and they used to make you stay a week then, which is a good thing,
Yeah.
in the hospital after you have a baby. Now they make you go home the next day. I don't know how people do it. I wasn't, you know, especially if you got other kids home
Mhm.
to take care of when you get back. It was hard enough after being in the hospital for a week.
Mhm.
I don't know how women do it.
I don't either.
Boy, they took care of you then, too.
Yeah.
Really.
Mhm.
I know with Greg, when I had him, and I had the 2 kids at home. And when I went home, I didn't nurse any of my kids. I tried with Donnie. It didn't work, so I thought, I'll never try that again.
Mhm.
Because it was hard on the baby and hard on me. And so I never, ever tried it again. I, always, fed him with the bottle,
Yeah.
And anyway, but they give you a shot to dry that up. Well, it didn't work
Oh no.
with Greg. And it came in anyway. And then the shot where they gave me got infected. I was so sick, I wanted to go back to the hospital so bad, and having to take care of 3 kids, Yeah,
Wow. Did you go back to the hospital?
no.
No.
No, they just, I don't know, sent me medicine or whatever.
Mhm.
But, yeah.
Wow.
But it was nice when they let you stay a week after a baby, boy. But now they get you up right off of the,
Mhm.
terrible.
Yeah.
But I can remember, I mean, there were, I don't know how, you don't feel good, believe me.
Yeah.
If you haven't had any babies.
No.
At the same time, no.
No.
Pretty happy with that
Yep.
decision. I could ask you questions forever. I'll leave it up to Melissa. What other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I asked all my
I didn't mean to get into that.
No,
that's fine.
I'm the one that asked. I'm sorry.
You're fine. You're fine.
It's more just, history. There's so much stuff that goes on
I
in
just-
general.
Yeah.
I don't know, I just think that you need to have faith in God and depend on Him to guide you. And I believe I've done that pretty much all my life. And I know that He was watching out for me when I was a kid, because there was too many times when it could have turned out really bad,
Mhm.
Are there any specifics you can tell us? Or
And
is
I
it
was too
personal?
friendly, too, with people.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd trust anybody.
Do you have an example?
Examples?
Yeah, of something.
Yeah. Well, one time, because I was on the bus all the time going back and forth, I met this old lady, really sweet old lady. And she was telling me all this. She had birds and all kinds of things. I loved animals, still do. But anyway, she talked me into getting off the bus and going to her house. And I did. I thought, what the heck, So I did. And then when I visited with her and whatever she wanted to show me, she was so proud of everything. And I got back on the bus, and I got home, but my mom still wasn't home yet. But anyway, and I told my mom, she had a fit about it. And she wanted me to take her back, which I did. I don't know how I remembered all that.
Yeah.
I mean, I get lost so easy now. But I did, and
Remember how to get to her house?
so she could figure out what she thought she was up to something. That she could have had somebody that was mean or bad living with her. Who knows? That was a bad thing to do. And there was other times
Lonely
like,
old lady.
huh?
She was just a lonely old lady.
She was, but I'm saying
Right.
I didn't know I was walking into it. Really, she could have had a son or
Right.
who knows that live with her that you hear about that kind of stuff all the time, But anyway, that was one time, and then there was other times. I don't think I really want to go into
That's
all
all right.
that.
You don't have to.
There were some times that were not very smart on my part. So, yeah.
This is a random question, I know I'm jumping back and forth, but other than the iPhone, what has been the most significant technology that you have lived through that helped you in your life?
Yeah. Well, I like the computer. I really do. Because I'm learning more and more every day the things you can find out about over the computer. Okay, give you for instance, when I thought of those programs we used to listen to, the mysteries and the creepy ones, and I went in there and I clicked on Google, and here they come up. I was so shocked that there's so much information about that time in the 1940s that you can go back and actually hear those programs.
It's pretty amazing.
And some were on there that I had forgotten about. Yeah, they're all on there. Like Amos and Andy and, oh gosh, you probably don't recognize any of those names. Jack Benny, the comical ones. And they were funny. How they make something like that then, they were really good broadcasting something for you that you don't see like they do TV,
Right.
But it's all on there if you want to go there and hear the same programs that we used to listen to over the radio. But they'll be the same. I mean, you're not going to see like you do
Right.
TV now, but they had to be pretty clever and imaginative to bring that through just the radio,
Right.
and for you to make it interesting.
Right.
And we're only half-an-hour programs, so like the creepy door and and you had to envision all that, over sound. So it's pretty neat if you look it up. I just went to 1940s. What I call it? I forgot what I typed in now.
That's all right.
Radio broadcast.
Radio broadcast, and all this comes up. Even that you can click on and hear the big bands and all that. I didn't because I didn't have time, But that would be interesting to look into that again,
You mentioned like the swing music. Did you like to go dancing?
Yeah, I was a good dancer.
Yeah. Was Grandpa a good dancer? No.
just slow. I tried to teach him, he just didn't have the rhythm.
I must get it from him.
Just a slow dance, that's all. I didn't really care if he did or not, I didn't really, But I used to dance with my sister and my friends, we used to swing dance, But that was when I was a teenager, stuff. But I love the big band music, swing. Don did too, actually. I got him into that when I got going because I had my brothers were big fans of collecting records, and so I had all their records, and I used to listen to them all the time, and that's why I guess my favorite music, because that's what was available, and Don got to where he liked it too, So, well, we used to go down to Table Rock when he first found that Branson. And I'll just tell you this, and I think I'm going to be finished.
Okay.
We went to a show down there. Now they have all individual shows. They had one big show where Glenn Campbell, Kenny Rogers, oh gosh, now I can't think of the other ones. Must have been, I know, Eddie Rabbitt. You know who Eddie Rabbitt was? Oh, he's so good. But, and Kenny Rogers, he's supposed to be Eddie Rabbitt was better than him. in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, but we got to see all them in one show. Well, we really got our money's worth, I'll
Yeah.
tell you. But now you got to go to each one individually.
Yeah.
And it costs. I mean, when we'd go down there, we'd only be able to go to a couple of the shows, different places, you know. But it's a neat place. I love Branson.
Yeah.
And it's clean, and the people are all nice, and there's no trouble down there. And mostly, you know, well, it's all ages. It's not just because they have all kinds of activities for everybody, right? We all went down there. You were little when we went down there, right?
I do
Wasn't she
remember
with us?
that. Yes, I was there.
Yeah. In fact, Carly and Sam were little. The last time we all went together, Don was still here. And that's why we went down there. We rented 2 or 3 cabins or more. I don't know, probably half a dozen
Yeah.
in our little area. We used to go to a quaint little lodge where they were inexpensive little cabins, but they were nice and clean. And the lake was right there. Yeah.
That's when Sam threw his 9 in the fire.
What's that?
Oh yeah.
That's when Sam threw his 9 in the fire.
His pacifier.
Nyanya, or whatever they call it.
Nyanya.
What do they call it?
Nanya,
Anyway.
is that what you call it?
Whatever. Binko or something.
Binky?
I can't remember. But they urged him, they kept after him to throw that thing in there. You're too old. Well, he finally let him, convince him to do it. Oh, but when bedtime came, oh my God.
Horrible. Poor kid.
Then we were all in trouble.
Yep.
Because he screamed his head off. I think he kept the whole lodge area awake.
I remember that.
But he was way too old to be. They do that. I see little 3-year-olds walking. That's what he was, wasn't he?
Oh, like 5.
Was he? Oh, no. He must have been 3.
No.
Because Carly was little. I think they're close to age, aren't they?
Yeah. I think so.
Carly and Sam. I'm pretty sure, yeah. Maybe not. Maybe Sam's a little older. Sam is 26 now.
Okay.
He was-
Carly's 24. Sam's
Yeah,
26.
Well, I thought he was in March. Barney, oh, God, what am I thinking? That's what Julie told me, that he turned
Sure
86.
she knows.
Oh, well. See, I can't
So
keep
then
track
he's
of
a
him.
couple years older than Carly.
You think? Well, anyway,
Yeah, because Carly's 10
well,
years
she was
younger.
walking. Maybe you're right, yeah. I didn't think he was 2 years older, though. I thought they were pretty close. But anyway, yeah, we had it was nice. And Greg and his family, everybody was there. Donnie and his kids. Everybody's kids were young then, too, though, so it was easier to get them together. you
Yeah.
know?
It's hard to do that now.
Yeah. Don enjoyed that so much. Everybody going down there together.
Yeah. Well, he is definitely missed.
What?
Grandpa's definitely missed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure is. I still miss him.
I know you do.
Done?
Are you done?
I think so.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. for
I
taking
can't
the
believe we
time.
did this so long.